Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter Show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports and especially football. We got a lot to get to tonight. The Deshaun Watson decision comes down. Tom Brady's going missing, so maybe we'll have some kind of a Where's Waldo with Tom Brady sometime during the year. And we have a lot of the other things to get to as we get ready and closer to the beginning of our favorite season, football season, both college and pro. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We got some games tonight, don't we? A little preseason action.
Yes, we do.
I'm looking forward to that. I think the Bears are taking on the Seahawks this evening, and then we've also got some games tomorrow that are getting down. And I'm done with talking about it. I want to see it. I want to see what's going on. I'm glad that the Deshaun Watson thing is over, or at least over for now. Hopefully we can stop talking about it after today. And, I wish Tom Brady would continue to be lost. Maybe he would just go away and never come back. I would be okay with that.
Well, let's just talk about Deshaun Watson. I mean, 11 games. It seems normal. It seems like that's what it should have been in the first place. Really ridiculous. $5 million fine. So maybe something will have to come out of his pocket as well. And I guess the NFL Players Association agreed to it, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this was an agreement. They really felt like the Players Association, Deshaun Watson's camp, the Browns, everybody felt like this new guy, the former prosecutor in New Jersey that picked up the case for General Robert Goodell after the first person he appointed made a decision he didn't like. They felt like this guy was going to drop the hammer. So they were really trying to negotiate a settlement and get an agreement made before this guy was able to make a decision, because they felt like it was definitely going to be the full season and maybe an indefinite suspension. So, I think the Watson camp, the Players Association, they were happy at this outcome. I mean, obviously they would have liked the first decision better, but they realized that wasn't going to fly. Nobody was good with the 6 games. And you know what? I mean, based on what's happened previously, I don't really think you could have left it at 6 games. I mean, hell, there's guys that have gotten 6 games for way less than what Deshaun was accused of. And let's be honest, he's been a black eye for this league for 2 years now. I mean, you can't let this guy who's tarnished the reputation of the National Football League, a multi-hundreds of billion-dollar business, and it's been a story on the front page of every news outlet for as long as you can remember.
And, we've talked about this at length. I mean, the Baker Mayfield aspect of it and everything else has been going on in Cleveland. And it just seems like this team just it seemed like they were getting ahead 2 years ago. They won 11 games. They're heading in the right direction. And now they're back to where they were when they lost every game in the season under Hugh Jackson, it seems.
I mean, the Browns organization has proven time and time again why they are regarded as one of the worst organizations in sports. It's just they can't seem to handle anything properly. They finally have a decent roster, and they go out and sign a guy who won't even be able to basically play all year long, and designate a lot of their resources and half their goddamn preseason to this guy who's not even going to play. And then, instead of, shoring up the backup options, they go out and get Josh Rosen and signed Jacoby Brissett when they already had Case Keenum on the roster last year. And they had Baker Mayfield on the roster, who they couldn't, get out of town, fast enough. And I'm still, I didn't like the Browns before all this happened. But after the way they've treated the one guy who's taken them to the playoffs in the last 20 years, I hope they lose every game. And I'm really cheering for Baker. I don't know if you saw, but it's expected that he's going to be announced as a starter in Carolina. I think we all kind of expected that. Yeah. But, there was people calling for Darnold after the first preseason game. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We've seen Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's not good. Let's let Baker play and see how it goes. And I'm really cheering for him. I hope he does well. And he got a raw deal. Me and you both talked about it time and time again. This guy was lights out in 2020. Led this team, was everybody's darling in the NFL across the country. In every damn commercial, killed it, beat the Steelers in the first round. And, then the next year he gets hurt. And instead of take him out and rest him, the Browns organization, of course, plays him, ruins him, and then wants to get rid of him and can't get rid of him fast enough. So it's just so ridiculous how you would draft someone number one overall, take him when a lot of people didn't expect him and didn't have him predicted to be the number one pick. You go out on a limb, draft this guy number one, and then ditch him a couple years later. And that's typical Browns. There's a reason why quarterbacks go there to die, because they're the Browns.
The attention span of the sporting public of the United States has become very disturbing now. You can no longer have an off game, let alone have an off year. It's the decisions made on you that you can't do it. And the worst thing is, the biggest culprits are the ex-athletes who now have jobs on ESPN and Fox Sports News and everything else. And they didn't like it when they were getting, criticized. But they're the worst at coming out. And you want them to be truthful. But the hyperbole and the over-the-top stuff really is crazy. I mean, I don't know. It just – guys have bad – when I watched Eli Manning for, 14 years, 15 years with the Giants. And he paid off for the Giants 2 Super Bowl wins. But for the most part, Eli was a really good quarterback. I don't know if you want to call him great. He was really good. And you knew every year that he'd have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 games where he just stunk up the joint. Same thing when Phil Simms was the quarterback of the Giants. He'd have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 games where he stunk up the joint. We don't know, people talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady had bad games. Everybody has bad games. It's just that Tom Brady was surrounded by more talent with a better coach that could protect him when he needed there were games all he had to do was hand off the ball. So, I mean, a lot of this, and right now we were talking about coming on the air, and I was listening this week because the New York media is just killing Daniel Jones. And he hasn't even played an official game yet. He was in for what? 2 drives last week. Did he look sharp? I don't know, but I mean, it's preseason, for God's sake. This is when you work things out.
Yeah, and I'm so confused as to why some guys, as a quarterback, when the team loses, it's not their fault and it doesn't harm their credibility. But other guys, if their team loses, it's all on them. Deshaun Watson's Texans go 4-12 and nobody cares. But Baker Mayfield's has the Browns go 7-9, and it's all on Baker. I'm not saying that he played great. I'm aware that Deshaun Watson did have a very good statistical year, the last time he was out there. But the point is, the team still sucked. They were 4-12. They were one of the worst teams in the league. And instead of stick it out and come back and lead the team, back to prominence in the league, he wants out and sits out an entire year and refuses to play. And I don't understand why no one cares about that, because I do.
And the other thing, I don't know, you always get the reports, you get after Baker left town, the guys didn't really like Baker or whatever, and this and that and whatever. But if you're Myles Garrett or a couple other players on the Browns who are Pro Bowl type players, and you look back and you realize by mismanagement, they've wasted 4 years of your career?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guarantee he's going to have a long Von Miller type career.
No. And it's, it's unfortunate, that last season went the way it went, but let's be honest. I mean, it wasn't all on Baker. I realize that he gets all the blame for what happened, but there was a lot of things that occurred with the Browns leading to the record that they had. First off, the expectations, I think, were a little bit overblown, and everybody expected them to win the Super Bowl, and everybody expected them to be a 13-14 win team when I'm not sure they were. And then they had a lot of injuries. I mean, they're the biggest high point, in my opinion, of that team was their running game.
Right.
And Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were injured. Both of them were injured and out quite a few games. And their offensive line was banged up. So it's not like he had tons of time back there to operate. But I'm not going to make excuses for him. He's a grown man. He gets paid a lot of money to play football. So I'm not going to make excuses for Baker. I just think it's interesting how, sometimes quarterbacks get all of the blame when a team loses, and other times, they don't. And I'm interested to see how he does in Carolina, because I can tell you this: if Carolina has a winning season this year, he should get all the credit, because they were garbage last year, and it was basically because of the quarterback position.
And back to Deshaun Watson. Okay, he's going to sit out 11 games. I haven't looked at the Browns' schedule, but they play in a tough division. I could see him coming back and then being something like 4-7, 3-8, something like that.
Well, they opened the season against Carolina, which we know and should be a good game. The second game they played the Jets, which we haven't discussed this yet, but Zach Wilson got hurt in his first game. So this is a kid who now has, this is his second season. It's a big year for him. And here we go. He's injured again. This was something I mentioned when we were talking about him coming out. I'm like, he's just not a big guy. And, I'm worried about his durability. And here it is. He's out again. But that should be a game that the Browns could win. After that, they play Pittsburgh. They play Atlanta. And then it gets difficult. They play the Chargers, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bengals, Miami, Buffalo, Tampa Bay. And then he's supposed to come back at Houston. So, the first 4 games, I think, are all potentially winnable. But after that, it's going to get tough.
Then again, we've seen Watson with the year he sat out with Houston not be interested in playing if he's not playing for anything.
Correct, and he did not look good in the game that he started the other night. I don't know if you watched, but he came out. He wasn't out there very long, but he looked awful in the brief moment he was out there. I think he was one of 6 or something for 7 yards, and had a couple drops, had a couple horrible throws. And, he looked like a guy who hadn't played football in almost 2 years. And that's what it's going to be. Once he gets out there, it's going to be almost 2 years since he last touched the field. So, all these people that just think he's going to get inserted in the lineup and they're going to win every game, I'm not so sure about that.
No, I think it's going to be a tough one for him. And then we have Tom Brady, who apparently, Tom Brady, no one's going to tell Tom Brady he can't do anything. I mean, he runs the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, they're not going to say he can't. But now he's taking the preseason off, and I if he came out and said, I remember the year that the Giants won the Super Bowl, Strahan's last year, and Strahan said, "No, I'm not going to camp." And but he's a defensive end. If he keeps himself in good shape, he's going to be fine. This is a quarterback. Timing with new receivers, timing with the line and everything else. And as good as he is, as great as he's been, and the other thing, like somewhere along the line, some players on this team got to look and go, "What the f? I'm out here sweating my balls off, working as hard as I can, and this guy's by his pool." And he's supposed to be my leader. And, the one thing everybody said about Tom Brady, the one thing that was always the thing that everybody stomped on with him was loves practice, loves being in practice, loves being part of the team. He's one of the guys. He's this, he's that. And now he puts this, whatever the problem is. And I hope it's nothing tragic. I hope it's nobody in his family that's sick. I hope it's nothing, if he's doing that for somebody in his family, or he's doing it for, a good reason like that, God bless him. I don't blame him. But if he's just doing this because he just can't make up his mind, or if he can't figure it out, or if he's just, I really don't have to do this every day. Well, there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me is that he's been gone since, I believe, August 11th. And all we've heard is that he's away from the team to tend to personal things. I have no idea what that means. I don't know when he's going to be back. Initially, they said he was stepping away and that he'd be back after the second preseason game. But I've heard that's there's really no clear date on his return. And let's be honest, man. I mean, the coach is gone. The coach that led them to the Super Bowl. No one's really talking about this, but Bruce Arians retired.
Right.
Todd Bowles is taking over. I like Todd Bowles.
So do I,
but I mean,
it's a bad hand.
Yeah, but I mean, now Tom Brady's disappeared, and then when Todd Bowles gets to take over, Ryan Jensen, their starting Pro Bowl center, is done for the year. They still don't have Godwin back from injury. I mean, I think this team
Gronk is gone.
I mean, I think this team, really could use Tom Brady right now because if you think that Blaine Gabbert's going to go out there and win games, I mean, Russell Gage is banged up. Chris Godwin still has not resumed full team activities. Mike Evans is hurt. Like I said, Jensen's out. I don't know, man. I'm concerned about this team, or I'd be concerned about this team if I liked them.
Well, I mean, the thing is that if Tampa Bay is a mess, that opens up a little bit of a window for Carolina, a big window for the Saints. If this is some kind of a situation where Tampa Bay is falling apart, if Tampa Bay is not going to be the Tampa Bay it's been for the last 3 years, then the Saints have a really good opportunity to capitalize on it. And maybe if McCaffrey could stay healthy and Baker could be healthy too, maybe Carolina can save Matt Rule's job and stay in the hunt for the playoffs.
Yeah, that NFC South definitely gets interesting. If the Panthers aren't or if the Buccaneers aren't what we expected them to be, because the rest of these teams are about even to me, honestly. I think the Saints have a little bit of an edge, but the Falcons, the Panthers, I mean, I give the Panthers a little bit of a nod, but let's be honest, they were 5-12 last year, and it was kind of a disaster down the stretch. But I feel like Baker improves that team not only with his play, but I feel like he's more of a leader. Sam Darnold, to me, just isn't really a leader at all. And
he might be the nicest guy in the world, but he doesn't bring anything else to the table.
Yeah, that's great. But we're not having a nice guy. We're not having a nice guy contest.
No,
we're playing a physical football game.
He doesn't have the intangibles to be a leader. He just doesn't. He's Mr. Excuse Me. I'm seeing ghosts out there. I'm seeing ghosts. So whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
All right, so let's go back. We talked about the Giants a little bit last week, and Daniel Jones, like you put up over there before, make or break here. And already I'm getting the Tyrod Taylor stuff around here. Put Tyrod in. I don't know. Tyrod Taylor's had a guy. He's the kind of guy that you sit there and you look on his career and you go, what ifs? What if he didn't get the? What if that guy didn't hit his lung with the syringe 2 years ago in San Diego? Or what if this didn't happen? He's the bridge quarterback wherever he goes. So, I mean, if it turns out that Daniel Jones can't measure up as a Giant fan, then Tyrod Taylor isn't the answer either. And you just got to hope that, one of these quarterbacks, either, Will Levis for Kentucky or, the Ohio State or the Alabama quarterback comes out and the Giants get their hands on him. But I don't know if they can.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Tyrod Taylor's the long-term answer. I don't think he was brought in to be the long-term answer. I think he was brought in to be a safety valve in case Daniel Jones isn't, back from the neck injury and the offseason neck surgery, or if he just doesn't play well. But this is Daniel Jones's job to lose. He's going to be the starting quarterback. I think Tyrod knows that. I think Daniel knows that. I think everybody knows it. But as we mentioned earlier, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. He's got to prove it. He's got to prove he's their guy. This coaching staff has no ties to Daniel Jones. They didn't select him. They haven't coached him. This is their first time ever working with him. I think they're going to let him, this is the guy they got. He was their quarterback that they inherited. But if he can't run Brian Daboll's offense, they're going to move on. And I think they'll either, bring somebody in, or they'll draft somebody. But the problem is if you don't lose enough games, you're not going to be in a position to draft anybody unless you have a lot of trade ammunition. And I haven't really studied their capital enough to know if they could move up and get somebody, if they don't lose enough.
The thing is that I just hope that the Maras go away from what's been their pension over the last 5-6 years to the Mara and Tisch families of giving a coach very short reins. I think this guy has a chance to be a very good coach. He's been around forever. He's a football lifer, and I think they're saying all the right things, but they said all the right things with Joe Judge too.
Yeah. Well, and not only him, but before that, let's be honest, Joe Judge wasn't the only coach in the last 6 years. They've been running through coaches like nobody's business. And
Pat Shurmur, Pat Shurmur is the one I kind of feel sorry for, and just on one aspect of it is that he basically got screwed by the NFL because the Minnesota Vikings went so deep in the playoffs that year that by the time he got picked up by the Giants, all the good assistant coaches were already on teams.
Right.
And that's something that the NFL has to look at with this stuff. I mean, just because you know that the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator of the teams that go on a long run in the playoffs are going to be the ones everybody's looking to cherry pick off. But if they don't have good assistants around them, they're not going to do well at all.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, after Tom Coughlin left, there was Ben McAdoo, who was the coach for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then he was actually a season, not even a full 2 seasons. He was fired, in the second season. Then they brought in Pat Shurmur, and they fired him after 2 years. And then they brought in Joe Judge and fired him after 2 years. You have to give somebody more than 2 years to instill their program, especially when you have a team that's been down as long as this team has been down. It's just, you're not going to turn this thing around overnight. And especially when a coach has never been a head coach before at the NFL level, it may take him a little while to get his feet settled. And I really am like you. I hope they give this guy a chance and enough time to prove whether he can get it done or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the feelings in the NFL lately have been because of a Sean McVay, because of a Shanahan, because of a Mike Tomlin going back almost 20 years now. Guys that, came right in and had success right away. But, Bill Belichick didn't do great his first time around. And he was in his first year with the Patriots, I think he was 3-13, something like that, 4-12.
I can't remember what his first year in New England was, but I do know that some people talk about how he struggled so much in Cleveland, and I don't really remember that. I remember him having trouble winning winning the Super Bowl, but honestly, he had some good teams in Cleveland. I mean, he won 11 games in 1994. But he did struggle at the beginning. They were 6-10 his first year. I believe his first year in New England, they were 5-11.
Okay.
So, it did take him a year to get going, but, everybody's different, and you got to look at what the team's got and what your personnel is like and what your, structure, what the culture is. And let's be honest, the Giants culture sucked, and they've had a losing culture all around that place ever since Coughlin's been gone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I go back to when they were even worse in the 70s, so I know when it can get really bad. But, hopefully we'll see what happens. I think their schedule is a little bit more beneficial this year. I think, Washington, I don't think really improved themselves that much. We'll see what Carson Wentz does. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. The Eagles have improved. The big thing for the Giants is they got to win both their Washington games. Hope to split with the other two, at least the Cowboys. If they could go 3-3 in their division, that'd be a major move towards it, or it would help me start believing they're heading in the right direction. Back to the Jets. Some parts of me thinks this Zach Wilson thing might turn out to be a blessing in disguise for him a little bit, because he's probably not going to begin the season as their starting quarterback. It's probably going to be Flacco. I don't think he'll be ready. So
No, I don't think so either. I think he's probably going to miss game one.
So maybe, just maybe, Salah and LaFleur can look at this team and say, okay, this is what we got to do to protect this kid, or what we got. Because I'm with. There's another thing up around here. While the Giants are being thrown into the grave, the expectation on the Jets is before Zach Wilson got hurt. Oh, they're going to be a playoff team, or they're going to at least win 8 games. And I was like, I've talked about this for the last month. There's no way they're going to win 8 games.
No,
there's just no way. Their schedule's too tough. So maybe Zach Wilson, if he misses like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, especially against those teams, maybe it gives him a chance to get really healthy and get ready, and maybe they'll have a better game plan for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got kind of mixed feelings on it because I don't think him missing time is going to help him. I think he needs to be out there every minute. He needs to be taking every snap he can take. And any time away from the field, I think, is going to set him back. But as far as the team goes, it might be good for the team. Joe Flacco didn't play in the first preseason game, but I expect he's going to play a lot in this next one because they're going to have to get him ready. And this team's better. I mean, the personnel is better. I like the running backs. They've got a slew of running backs now, man. I like Michael Carter. I like Michael Pirine. I like Breece Hall. They're going to ride those guys, and they're going to try and run the football and play good defense. And they've got the personnel to do that a little bit better now. And as we mentioned last week in the show, signing Dwayne Brown was huge for them. And I think that's going to help their offensive line quite a bit with their tackle going down as well. Mr. Becton, he doesn't seem to want to play football at all either. So
he wants to be at Arby's. And I can pick on him for like, because that's me too. There you go, Mackay. Looking around the league at some of the other teams, what is going on with? Can anybody get any freakier than Aaron Rodgers? What's going on with this guy now? With something in the locker room or whatever?
He came out and was doing an interview and basically started ripping on his receivers and saying that they can't catch the ball, that none of them can run the right routes, that they're making lots of mistakes. What the hell did he think was going to happen? You get rid of the best receiver in the league and you insert a bunch of second year and rookies, and you think it's going to look roses the first 3 weeks of training camp? I mean, I don't understand what he was thinking and why he thought that they were going to look like, a well-tuned unit when a lot of these guys have never even played before. And a lot of these guys, just to be honest, aren't very good. I don't have a problem with him calling them out, but I just don't see how it helps things in the grand scheme of things. I just don't get that.
Whatever happened to RELAX?
I guess he's after the hallucinogenic drugs. He's moved off of that.
I mean, God, man, Aaron. I mean, maybe it's time for you to go on the LIV tour because I mean, you seem to be freaking out. It is what it is. Like you're not going to get the best players every year, and I mean, he's done well. He's definitely going to Canton, but I mean, I don't know. He just rubs me the wrong way, and you got to wonder if maybe them falling short has something to do with him at some points. And I mean, because it's the regular season for them in that division for the last decade has just been a victory lap.
Yeah.
Except for maybe a couple of games against the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, they don't seem to have any problems winning the games in the regular season. The issue's, been in the playoffs. They can't seem to get over the hump. And really, when you look back, this guy's won, 3-4 MVPs, and they've gotten to one Super Bowl. And that is kind of confusing. But at times, I've been critical of the pieces around him. I mean, yes, they did have they did have the best receiver in the league, but what else did they have? They've got good running backs. Their defense has gotten better, but I've been kind of critical of their receivers also, just like he's been. I was critical of him before too, because I'm just not a big believer in Alan Lazard. This guy is going to be their starting, X receiver. And I'm just like, I'm not sure that guy's an NFL quality guy. And then they're trying to rehash Sammy Watkins, who's on his, fifth team in the last 6 years. And then they've got a 40-year-old Randall Cobb out there. So, I'm not shocked that he's not impressed with the wide receiver core, because I'm not impressed with them either. But I just don't know what making fun of them does in the long run for the team.
And Randall Cobb was the man he wanted back. I mean, I got to be serious about this. I mean, this NFL preseason has been among the most negative I've heard about in a long time. I don't know if it's because we don't have that high-profile quarterback trying to come in and make. Last year's draft was a good draft with a lot of talent in it, but not at those, for lack of a better term, sexy positions like quarterback. I'm getting a feeling with the NFL this year that it's kind of mundane. It's kind of like we're going through the motions, and it's hard to really get a feel and a pulse of what's going on out there, and who's going to make some impacts. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, let's be honest. This draft was not stocked full of quarterbacks, which is what, everybody wants to go out in the draft and get their next franchise guy. And there just wasn't that much talent at that position. But at the same time, I will say the thing that I was probably the one guy that I've probably been the most impressed with in this preseason is Kenny Pickett. This guy, once he got in there, man, he was lights out. I don't know if you saw the game against the Seahawks.
I read about it.
He looked really sharp. I mean, he was 13 of 15 for 95 yards, had 2 touchdowns. He looked like a guy that is on his way. I mean, he's a rookie. That's to be expected to be a rookie, not looking maybe like the greatest quarterback in the league. But I got to be honest, I was impressed with him. And I really do feel like if he's the best guy, he will start. I mean, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in his career in Pittsburgh. I don't think he wants to have one this year. And he's not married to Mitchell Trubisky. I think he wants to play whoever is the best. And to be honest with you, I think Kenny Pickett is the best quarterback they've got. And I think he's probably going to give them the best chance to win when it's all said and done. But that game to me was the most interesting because you had the 3-guy race going on in Pittsburgh. And then you had Seattle with the quarterback battle going on there with Drew Lock and Geno Smith.
Yeah, and I heard Drew Lock outplayed him, but now Drew Lock's got a COVID problem going on.
Yes, he's going to be out at least for 5 days, which sucks because he was going to start this next preseason game. And, I was actually pretty impressed with Drew Lock, too. He was 11 of 15 for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Geno didn't look bad, but he looked like Geno. Geno's Geno. Geno's not a horrible quarterback, but he's just not a guy that's going to, lead a team to 14 wins. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So, maybe Drew Lock is the best option for them. I don't know. But it's not going to help Drew Lock's cause if he's not on the field. Why the hell are we still testing for COVID anyway? Is it what are we doing that? Do they have to get tested every day? Or are they wearing masks?
I guess they have to do it. I guess it's something.
For what?
I don't know.
I mean, somebody has COVID and it's they're asymptomatic. Who cares? I mean, if you don't know, what does it matter? I just didn't know that we were still testing everybody every day. Are they doing that?
I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I can't tell you for sure. But I think I think the one thing I will say on Goodell's situation is you don't all of a sudden want to have 11 players go down and not be able to play in a football season. I mean, that's one thing that you want to keep track of. But the fact of the matter is, if a guy's out there and he doesn't know he's got it, and or he just caught it, you didn't catch him in the testing. I mean, maybe it'll spread through the team as well. I don't know.
Well, my point is, this guy's fighting for his football life. It didn't work out in Denver. They moved off of him. They went out and got Russell Wilson. They included him in the trade. This is his last chance, in my opinion, to be a starter and to be a potential franchise guy. He's doing everything right. He played pretty well in his first preseason game. and boom, now he's out for at least a week and has to be in isolation, can't practice with the team, doesn't get to start in the second preseason game. This could be very bad for him and his progression in his attempt to be the starting quarterback in Seattle.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing he does, but like you said, we know what we get with Geno Smith. We know we know one thing is that Geno somewhere along the line will blow up, and he'll get another shot. I mean, that's just Geno's mo. If Geno was that in college. I remember when he was at West Virginia, he has the couple of great games, and everybody says, "Oh, he's a new future Heisman Trophy winner." And all of a sudden, he blew up. So I mean, I'm not a big Geno believer.
I'm not either.
I don't worry about that. Let's talk about college football right now. Why don't you talk about Notre Dame? They lost a big recruit yesterday or the day before. What is going on with the Fighting Irish? I mean, this coach was by mandate a great fit and everything's going right. And now you get a freshman who walks off and goes into the transfer portal. Are we just getting to the point where these guys are just spoiled athletes and everything doesn't go perfect for them while I'm leaving?
Yeah. Supposedly, and I had never heard this before, but supposedly Notre Dame has some policy where if you're committed, you're not allowed to go take official visits at other schools. Have you ever heard that?
No.
That is a rumor that I heard was some sort of unspoken rule with the Irish. And anyway, this guy apparently wanted to go look at other schools, and so he decommitted. And this is big for them. I mean, I'm not saying that they still don't have a decent class in 2023 because they still do have some talent in that class. But this was the major piece. This was the first guy that committed to Marcus Freeman's 2023 class. This is the number one player on this class, and he's their only 5-star recruit that they had. He's the number 24 ranked prospect overall, 6'5", 230, out of Berkeley Prep in Tampa, Florida. He's the number one edge rusher in the class. So if they lose this guy, it's going to be a big hit on them. And let's be honest, I have no clue why they're ranked number 5 in the preseason poll either. So, they're getting this hype, and at the same time, people are backing away from their commitment. So I'm very confused as to what's going on there. I'm not impressed with the preseason ranking, considering, as me and you've discussed off air, I don't like their quarterback position.
No.
They've said that they're naming their starter, but I don't know whether that guy is going to be their starter for the entire season. And if you don't have the quarterback position settled, what position do you have settled? I don't know. But I think there's a little bit of confusion going on in Notre Dame land because they're not sure which conference they're going to be in. They're not sure who their quarterback's going to be. And they've got a rough start of the season opening up in the shoe in Columbus. So they better figure everything out before they get into the Ohio State Buckeye land.
They don't have a lot of time for that. I mean, and this is, I mean, I believe in this coach. I think this coach can be a good coach. But, I mean, this is his first time as a head coach, I believe, right? I mean, he wasn't going to be a head coach anywhere else. I mean, the one thing about Kelly when he took over, he had success in Cincinnati. He'd had success at Central Michigan. He'd come from somewhere else. If you go back before him to Lou Holtz had been almost everywhere. Most of these guys for Notre Dame would come in here without experience, without having been somewhere, can be overwhelmed by that job. And it's one of the harder jobs in America to deal with.
I agree 100%. And let's be honest, he coached the bowl game, and that didn't really go very well. They had a big 3-touchdown lead and blew it down the stretch. And you can't tell me that that's not on coaching when you're up by 3 touchdowns and you end up losing the game in the second half. I mean, that's very much to me on coaching. Now, I love Marcus Freeman. He played at Ohio State. He's from Columbus. I think he's a really good guy. I think he's a really good up-and-coming coach. But to be the head coach at Notre Dame, in the season where you're expected, to compete for the national championship. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of expectations. And, I'm not sure whether the roster matches the expectations to begin with.
It really hasn't matched the expectation, what their expectations are. It hasn't. I mean, even in the Brian Kelly era, you didn't look at that Notre Dame roster and say, well, if one quarterback goes down, I got this guy, or I got that guy, or I got that guy. You may have had one really good quarterback and one average quarterback. I mean, you had Jack Cohn last year, who, for God's sake, is at best a middle of the road college quarterback.
Yeah, you got replaced in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, and even when Tommy Rees was their quarterback under Kelly, I mean, he was constantly relegated to being, the relief pitcher off the bench. And I mean, Ian Book was probably the guy who had the best career under Kelly as far as quarterback, and he started for 3 years. But I mean, everybody else, it was a revolving door of quarterbacks. And I mean, I was used to growing up as a Notre Dame fan. I was used to watching Theismann get replaced by Clemens, getting replaced by Montana, getting replaced by, every year you knew they were going to have a 3 or 4 year starter coming in, and they wouldn't have to worry about their quarterback for 3 or 4 years. It hasn't been that way for a long time outside of Ian Book.
No, you're right. I mean, they've tried a bunch of different options. Remember, it was Everett Golston, and then it was Wimbush, and then it was just like every year it was a different guy. And none of these guys really panned out and ended up being a long-term solution at the position, except for, your boy there. And we had questions about him, but he is one of the winningest quarterbacks in Notre Dame history. But now, they're turning the page, and they're naming this Tyler, what's his name, Buckner,
yeah,
as the starter. And last year I wasn't 100% sold on this guy. I mean,
he's a better runner than he's a quarterback.
yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, he was 21 of 35, 298 yards. I mean, I don't know these stats on this guy. I mean, I'm just not so sure that I'm ready to hand the reins to this team over to this dude.
And I watched Drew Pine. I watched Drew Pine as a high school. He's undersized. He's got an average arm. And he doesn't. I'll tell you, he doesn't have a bad arm. His arm is not that bad. And watching him in his high school days, he could drop it into the bucket every once in a while. But that's playing in high school football in Connecticut. It's not playing high school football in Florida, or high school football in California, or high school football in Ohio or Texas. You know what I mean? It's the level of competition where he played. You had to get ready for 2 games a year, maybe 3. The rest of the time, it's kind of like when they talk about Tua down in Miami, and when I saw that stat that in his senior year at Alabama, he played in the second half of only 2 games. I mean, you got to see every situation. It's the only way to improve as a quarterback, and I don't see Drew being able to compete at that level. I thought he would have. I thought he actually would have left, and transferred somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what they've got right now. They've got Tyler, they've got Drew Pine, and then they've got Ron Powlus the 5th. So, who the hell is going to lead these guys down the field to score every time? Because when you're playing a team like Ohio State, I don't care what you think about the Buckeyes, they can score on every single possession, and they're going to put points up. And I don't care how good you think Marcus Freeman's defense is, they're not going to stop the Buckeyes every time they have the ball. And so you better be prepared to go down and score. And as I mentioned to you, the Notre Dame's number 1 receiver is done for the year. So this might be a rougher year than a lot of people think for the Irish. And if things go, I'm just interested to see what happens if things go poorly early. Do all the rest of these commits stick it out and stay with Marcus Freeman? Do the fans turn on this guy?
Oh, the fans will turn so fast. Look what they would do with Tyrone Willingham.
Well, they hated freaking Brian Kelly, and he's the winningest coach of all time, and half the fans don't like him. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm worried about Marcus if things don't go well early. If they lose the first game to the Buckeyes, if they lose another game, things could turn on him really quickly.
you're down in SEC country. You're down. You're a big Ohio State fan, and I mean these two, Alabama and Ohio State, stockpile talent. You have guys that sit on the bench and wait their turn to be quarterback, and Notre Dame can't get one. Where is the missing? Where is the people say it's the standards or academic standards? I don't get that. Don't tell me every Notre Dame player is an astrophysicist. You know what I mean?
No.
It's no, there's some reason that quarterbacks. I mean, Notre Dame used to be the glamour position for quarterbacks in college football because Rick Meyer, for God's sake, his 3 years there was in the Heisman Trophy race.
Yeah, Rick Meyer was a good player.
He was a good player, but he wasn't a great quarter. He wasn't a Heisman Trophy guy.
Yeah, he was because he played for Notre Dame. The problem is Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988 season. Yeah. And these kids know that. These kids weren't alive the last time that Notre Dame won the national championship. Now, they've seen them make the college football playoff a couple times, and let's be honest, it hasn't gone well when they've gotten in there. And it hasn't gone well when they played against top-ranked opponents. I mean, that one victory over Clemson was the first time that Brian Kelly had beat a top-5 ranked team in his tenure, and I believe his record was like 3-15 or something like that against teams in the top 10. So, their record against good teams is not good, and a lot of people think that's due to the schedule that they play and the fact that they kind of make that up. And
that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, I don't know if that's it. I think it's their roster.
If you look at their schedule, I mean, they for a while they were playing Temple every year. They were playing UConn every year. They cherry pick their schedule.
Yeah.
Look, I grew up a Notre Dame fan, but anybody who sits there and tells me, "Oh, Notre Dame gets the," that's 1960s, 1970s thinking. Notre Dame doesn't carry that kind of weight that it's everybody's Super Bowl anymore. Yeah, they love to beat them because they're arrogant. But the fact of the matter is like, don't tell me they play a hard schedule. I mean, they still play Navy every year, even though Navy's been good.
No, that's what I was saying. I was saying that's why they don't. That's why they struggle when they play these top ranked teams, is because their schedule doesn't prepare them for that. That's my whole point.
You're right. You're totally right. You got to play the best to be the best.
And that's why Alabama wins the national championship every year, because they have to go and they have to play Georgia, Florida, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. They have to run the gauntlet of the SEC, LSU, Auburn, whoever. They have to play those teams, and by the time they get to the end of the season, they're a well-run machine. And whoever they're playing doesn't scare them because they've already played top-tier talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there may have been a time when the talent was so spread out back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where the top 20 was legitimate. Right now, it's the top 5 teams, the top 4 teams are so much better. It reminds me of, you're a tennis fan too. It reminds me of the men's tour in tennis, where you got Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, and maybe one other player are head and shoulders above the rest. And the rest of the top 20 tennis players in the world are just like, who cares? Those guys will beat them up anytime they play them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that for 20 years. I mean, every major tournament is either, if it's on clay, we know that the Spanish bull's going to win. If they're playing on grass or hard court, it's going to be Federer or
Djokovic.
And that's how it's been. And that's kind of how college football is right now. I mean, you got Georgia, you got Alabama, you got Ohio State, you got Clemson, and then you got kind of everybody else, in my opinion. And we'll see if that changes this year. But I just don't see the Irish being the team that breaks that trend. Tyler Buckner or Buchner or whatever the hell his name is, being named the starting QB kind of worries me. Avery Davis, their starting wide receiver, being lost for the season with the torn ACL worries me. And then, starting the season off in Columbus on September 3rd concerns me as well, because like I said, if things start going bad, these fans, they'll turn on a dime on this guy, even in year one.
And then before we're in our last 10 minutes now, but I wanted to talk about what we were talking about coming on the air with the realignment of conferences. Of this article I read this last week or the week before, Rutgers being $59 million in the red with their sports programs, and now they have to find a way to travel to UCLA and USC to play football and basketball and any other sport. I mean, this is where the realignment of conferences does not work. It works for USC, which is a multi-billion-dollar. I mean, their alumni are huge. UCLA alumni are huge. Rutgers is the State University of New Jersey. It doesn't belong in the Big Ten.
Correct, but they're going to benefit from this. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but today the Big Ten, turned away from ESPN and they signed a record $7 billion deal for TV rights. And that's going to average out to be over $1 billion annually. And every team in the conference is going to benefit from that. And every team is going to share in some of that revenue. So yeah, they may be in the red. I don't know how the hell they manage that. But they're gonna be in the black soon enough, because everyone's going to get some of this cash. USC and UCLA coming to the conference is one of the biggest factors in this, because love or hate both those teams, they're in Los Angeles, and that's one of the biggest television markets in the country.
The USC Alumni Association is one of the most powerful in all of the country. I mean, you're talking about CEOs of corporations, and Hollywood, and big Washington and everything. So I mean, yeah, you're bringing a lot of power in there. But you got to think of this too. The Rutgers will get their money after the Sopranos get their cut.
Yeah, that's a true story. You think back, it wasn't that long ago, 1996, when the Big Ten signed that 10-year, $100 million contract with ESPN that put almost all their conference games on the network. And then, they signed that deal with Fox, the Big Ten network did, I believe in 2007, which was about a $2.8 billion deal. But now, we're talking about big time bucks, $7 billion just for TV rights.
Who'd they sign with?
Mainly they're working with CBS, NBC, and Fox. So It's kind of three networks that are going to share these games, because you got to think about it now. You may have Ohio State, Michigan State is the number one game of the week. You may have Michigan versus USC is the number 2 game in the Big Ten Conference. I mean, that's big time eyes want to watch Michigan and USC.
Just as long as it doesn't go to Amazon and Apple and everything else like baseball is going through.
Yeah, we'll probably see that happening too. But at least we don't have to watch ESPN anymore to see my Buckeyes play, because that made me want to barf. So I'm excited about this. But yeah, I mean, all these teams are going to benefit and are going to get paid out the wazoo. $7 billion. I don't care who you are. That's a lot of cash. But I don't know if you heard, some of the players came out today and said they wanted a cut of that, and that they feel like they should be getting part of the TV money now too. You open up the NIL can of worms, and the worms just run, because the $1 million that these kids are getting before they even set on the field, it's not enough anymore. Now they want some of this $7 billion.
Well, that's what I always said. That's why I understand that, and this is always my argument. Yes, people they're the product. They're the thing people come to see. But there are a bunch of guys on the bench that never hit the field that no one hears about, that end up with free college degrees and connections worth a lifetime that will get them jobs on Wall Street and in law firms, wherever they want to go, if they take advantage of it properly. So, I mean, that's the one thing that always worried me about this stuff. And the agents are coming. They're coming. They're looking.
Oh, yeah.
To get in there.
Malachi Nelson, the number 1 quarterback in the country for the 2023 class. He already signed with USC. He signed with an agent today. And so now he's got a sports agent. This kid's 17 years old, and he's got an agent, telling him what to do. And my thing is, we're going to see how this is going to work, because a lot of these kids have so many obligations now outside of just their regular football obligations. They've got appearances they've got to be at. They've got commercials and shit that they've got to do. There's a lot of stuff that can pull away from the focus of playing college football. And I'm interested to see how it affects some of these guys. Some guys, they may be able to handle it, but other guys, may not do as well under the pressure.
I don't know. I just see a lot more of, okay, your team loses 3 in a row. I'm sitting out. I'm getting ready for the draft.
Yeah, we may see that too. That's been going on for years, though. Now, we've seen these guys sit out of the bowl games. It kind of started back with Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette, and it's kind of built, and it's continued since then. Neither one of those guys' draft stock was affected at all. In fact, they both were picked higher than a lot of people anticipated. So it's continued to happen, and we may see one of these kids halfway through the season. The team loses 2-3 games. They may just say, hey, I'm done. I don't want to get hurt. I've already signed my contract. My NIL deal's paying me all this money. Why do I want to go out and get hurt and ruin my chances of getting an NFL contract when I'm already, going lined up to get drafted? We may see somebody say that and sit out. We've already seen guys that, get halfway through the season and are like, hey, I don't like how this is going. I'm out of here. I'm transferring. That's going to happen a lot more too. So we already saw it last year where the kid from Ohio State, threw his helmet into the stands in the second quarter. I think we're going to see more of that as we move forward instead of less.
Whatever happened to playing for the guy next to you?
Yeah. Well, this ain't your daddy's college football anymore, unfortunately.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. We got to talk a little bit. You're going to be on vacation next week.
Yes, sir.
Leaving now and going to the shore. Enjoy it. Well deserved, well earned.
Yes, sir.
No man coverage this week either, right?
I don't know. We may try to do it if we get a guest, but we may skip it and just call it and come back after the games get started. But I'll be in touch with you. We can talk and see what's up. If we've got some things to talk about, maybe I can jump on with you a little bit on Thursday. Okay. We'll see what happens.
All right. Everybody have a good night tonight. We're going to break it down here. I'm going to go see if the Mets can salvage a split with the Braves and get out of Atlanta still in first place and comfortably, shall I say. And we'll take it from there. Nate, enjoy the vacation, my man.
All right, I'm going to go watch Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears and see if they have anybody on that team that can catch a pass from Justin.
What is going on with Roquan Smith? Do you think he'll be traded?
I think they're going to have to trade him. I mean, he's refusing to play. He's unhappy with his contract. He wanted to get a big deal. It didn't happen. He's watched all these other guys getting paid and getting all these mega deals, and he's refusing to play. So because he's there at the facility, they can't fine him. But he's not practicing. So I think they need to just it's a rebuild. We already know this with the Bears. It's a rebuild. This isn't going to be a playoff season. Get rid of him. Get what you can. Get younger. Get 2 or 3 guys for this one guy and move on. I think that's what they should do, and I think that's probably what will happen.
That's it. All right, everybody, good night. We will see you maybe next week. If not, we'll definitely see you the week after.
All right, bud. Have a good one.
You too.